Okay, so Amisha, welcome back to your second podcast here with us on RNT Fitness Radio. Really good to have you back. Well, I'm looking forward to diving into version 2.0, as you've called it, and a little bit about what's happened after your first transformation checkpoint with us at RNT. And I always think getting in shape is one thing, managing to keep it and continuing to improve is what RNT is all about. So I'm excited to dive in and find out a little bit more around what's happened since, how have you continued to use the physical as the vehicle to improve your life. But before we do that, why don't we take a little bit trip down memory lane for those who haven't heard your story, seen your transformation before. What was life like for you before RNT when you first joined us back in what must be 2020 now?
It was back in 2020, yeah. So I was someone that had always kind of worked out, thought I was eating well, but was never happy with the way that I looked. And I felt that always held me back in terms of my confidence. And that had impacted kind of all areas of my life in terms of like my career, my relationships, the decisions that I was making for myself in terms of the things that I thought that I was worthy of. And then obviously went through my first transformation with you guys, which I think I've talked about before, but I will recap. Absolutely, the impact of that is so profound in that, yes, you've got the physical side of things. I was in great shape. I finally got the body that I'd always dreamt of and always wanted. I knew that it would change me a little bit in terms of the mental side of things, but I mean, I wasn't ready for the profound impact that it had in terms of how I felt about myself. The confidence skyrocketed, and I felt like I was finally living the life that I was born to live, because my confidence wasn't holding me back anymore. I was able to do and put myself forward for things that I never dreamt that I would be able to. So,
just on that, like if I was just looking in hindsight, what do you think about the journey that you're on at the beginning allowed you to do that? Like confidence in how you look is one thing, confidence in what you do is like a different one. But what about it gave you that confidence to go off and do different things? And maybe we're going to touch on what those things are, but if you were to look back, what is it?
I think it was probably down to my self-worth, in that I thought I was worthy of putting myself forward to do things like jobs applications, putting myself in even work situations. I was always someone that probably wouldn't be sharing my views around, how we could do things better. But because the journey changed the way that I felt about myself. Ultimately, it changed the relationship that I had with myself, which then impacted on the relationship that I had with everything else in my life.
What was your relationship like with yourself before? Like, what was the self-talk?
Yeah, it wasn't great self-talk. I wasn't always kind to myself. If I was in a situation where there was a contribution that I wanted to make and I wasn't making it, I'd kind of beat myself up about it, in that, like, why didn't you just say that? That was a really valid contribution. Like, you should have just like pushed yourself and made yourself share it. But I was always held back with lack of self-esteem and always caring about what other people would think of me if I got something wrong.
And what about like getting in shape has allowed you to build that self-esteem? Like, what do you think it is? Like, is it literally how you look in yourself when you look in the mirror? Is it, what is that? Like, if you were to look back on it, because you're in like an interesting position where you've been in great shape now for 4 years plus. You've managed to stay in great shape, keep off the weight. What do you think it is that's built that self-esteem for you?
I think ultimately it's how I feel about myself now compared to how I felt about myself before. So that not being happy meant that I didn't feel worthy of being in certain situations or worthy of having nice things, good things go well for me. And getting into shape meant that I felt really good about myself. There was almost like a self-acceptance, in that because I was happy with the way that I looked, I accepted myself for being great, for being confident, for being, and allowing myself to be happy.
What have been some of the key habits that you've picked up from the first part of your journey that have stuck with you in keeping the weight off?
Do you mean in terms of the practical things that I've been doing?
Yeah, just from a practical perspective, like there's one thing of the habits that you need to implement to lose weight. But to keep it off, there potentially are different habits, right? Like, yes, it's having a nutritious, healthy meals, but how you approach that on the way down is different to how you approach it long term. So what have been some of your ones that have allowed you to keep the weight off?
So I've continued to train. Training for me it's something that I really enjoy. So there were never any options around, do I go to the gym today or do I not? I really enjoy the feeling that I get when I'm in the gym, when I'm training. So that has been something that I haven't stopped doing. And eating, I'm working more towards eating intuitively at the moment. I'm still on a plan. I still weigh everything I eat, not because I have to, because I have the time in my life that allows me to do that. I'm very conscious of the fact that when life moves on and I have a family, partner, etc., I might not have the luxury of all that time to be weighing and prepping my meals. So that's why I want to work towards eating more intuitively. Going for walks has become more than just getting steps in. It's around my mental health. I crave those walks on my lunch break because they really help to clear my head. And it's such a good opportunity. It's great thinking time for me. It's time where I get to do other things I really enjoy, like listening to podcasts, audiobooks, music, and educating myself. And I really enjoy kind of the fresh air and the break from work.
When you say you're working on eating more intuitively, what would you say your eating habits are like in general now? And I know you say on plan when you're at home. I'm very similar. Like, even though I can eat very intuitively, I still prefer weighing food and just eating very similar foods just because I don't want to think about it. But let's say, for example, you go away for a week, 2 weeks, or you're at social events. Like, how's your relationship with food when you're out and about, and how do you approach that battle of sticking with your habits, but also enjoying yourself? Because that's where people want to be. Is they don't really mind eating on plan when they're at home, but it's that when you're going away, when you're at social events, restaurants, etc., you don't want to be pulling out your Tupperware underneath the table.
Yeah. So I've been on a number of all-inclusive holidays abroad where I've had access to kind of like, the masses of food that they put in front of you, and not necessarily all good, healthy options. I don't know. I think I'm just drawn towards food that I know are going to help me feel better, but I do allow the flexibility. Like, I don't restrict myself to a point where I'm constantly craving everything. I allow myself to have a pastry for breakfast. Maybe I might go slightly healthier for lunch, knowing full well that I'm going to be having that 3-course meal for my dinner, and allowing myself to have that 3-course meal for my dinner. And also, my relationship with food has changed in that I no longer feel the need to eat everything that's in front of me. I can say no, because I know I'm able to eat the things that I want to eat. So it's the element of not restricting.
Well, that's quite big, because you mentioned, like, you can have a pastry for breakfast. Yeah, some people would think, coffee and pastry for breakfast, like, that sounds criminal for a healthy lifestyle. But how have you managed to have one pastry with coffee for breakfast, as opposed to the pastry? I don't know what else. What do other people have? What do people have with a pastry that might go with it? Whatever else you could throw on it, but maybe that becomes the daily thing, or maybe there's 2 pastries. Like, how do you enjoy just the one pastry? Like, what's changed about you there? Because you said that your relationship with food has changed dramatically, and I think the difference between getting in shape and staying in shape very much is that relationship with food. If you were to dissect that your relationship there, like, what is it that's different?
I guess because through the journey, I've educated myself in terms of the things that I need to be eating that are going to help me in terms of training, because that's a really big thing for me as well. Training, going to the gym, building muscle. I love the way that my body feels holding on to more muscle. And I know that I need to eat in a certain way if I want to facilitate that muscle building in the gym. So as much as I know that I can have this one pastry, I also know that having 10 pastries not going to be great for me being in the gym tomorrow and trying to get all the gains that I can.
The gains. I like it. And as a woman, how have you found developing that love for weight training and wanting to build muscle? Because most women want to feel toned, but they don't understand that tone means building muscle and losing body fat. So have you ever had any blockers around that, or have you always enjoyed training?
I'm someone that has always enjoyed training. And I think through my journey with RNT, I was able to educate myself in terms of what good training looks like. I had all that good coaching around good form, the right exercises, the right exercise order, the things that you should be doing, the things that you shouldn't be doing. But fundamentally, I was always someone that liked the benefits. I like the feel of being in the gym and training and how I feel after I've done a really good session in the gym.
Yeah,
It's
that
the
makes sense.
endorphins, isn't it? That can be, I think, quite addictive.
Yeah. How many times a week are you training generally?
At the moment, I'm doing 3 days, but then some
Okay.
stretching in between as well.
Yeah, nice. And in terms of like the process that you follow on a weekly basis, where have you settled into on like habits perspective? Like, hearing 3 days a week training, that sounds like super sustainable. People might think, oh, I have to train 7 days a week to keep in shape. But 3 days a week training, what does nutrition look like? What does steps look like? What does cardio look like? Just to get like an idea of like ultimately what your lifestyle solution is.
Yeah, so 3 days in the gym, it's more kind of I'm doing full body workouts. And then my nutrition, I'm on, I would say just over 2,000 calories a day. I try to get between 10 and 12,000 steps in. Most days I am hitting 12,000 steps. And I have actually brought my cardio down from twice a week to once a week, just because I wanted to see how my body kind of responds to that. And at the moment, it's holding and I'm feeling good. And I'm also aware that cardio can sometimes limit the muscle building side of things. So I'm trying to maximize the muscle building.
Yeah, nice. So you're training 4 days a week and eating over 2,000 calories and maintaining your body weight. That's it. That's living the dream.
I've actually increased my body weight recently and composition has pretty much stayed.
And you think it's just because of getting stronger?
I do. Absolutely. I feel I can see more muscle. I can see that I've put on more muscle in my body.
What have been some of your changes in your lifts, like in terms of progress?
Do you mean from when I first started with you guys and then where I'm at now?
Yeah.
So, okay, I suppose the one that I'm most proud of would be my hip thrust, which I think when I was starting out was at 20 kgs on the fixed bar. And I'm around 170 kilograms now on the bar hip thrusting.
170 kilos. Damn, that's strong. Yeah. Well, you got to grow some muscle that way.
Enjoy. Yeah, it's an exercise I really enjoy.
Amazing.
Don't get me wrong, the setup takes about 10 minutes and it takes me a good 5 minutes to psych myself up into doing my first rep, but I get the reps done. I'm super happy with that.
What sort of rep range are you on that?
I've done 8.
Wow, 170 kilos for 8. That's serious. I
know there's more in me, but I've played around with different exercises, and that's the fun part, I guess, of being where I'm at in the journey. In that there's flexibility for me to play around with plans, play around with exercises, kind of find what I enjoy, what works for me.
Yeah, nice. What other lifts have you look back and think, like, that's a massive improvement?
So my RDL probably started again similar, maybe 20, 30 kgs on the bar. I'm at 100 now, and clean 100 with 12 reps.
And when do you think you started training with a lot of intensity? Because to move in 170 kilos on hip thrust, you're not doing that whilst having a laugh and looking around and all that sort of stuff. You've got to be locked in, right? And same with an RDL of 100 kilos.
Yeah.
Was that always something you were able to really dial in and go for it? Or at what point did you start learning how to push yourself? And how did you go through that process?
I think, again, it's through the coaching that I received from you guys, and that I track everything. So, I'll look at my logbook from last week and be like, right, okay, this is what we were doing last week, but actually we don't want to be doing exactly the same. Let's try it and let's see if we can get the extra rep. I mean, for me, progress isn't necessarily always about reps and weight either. It's about how it feels, how that weight feels when I'm moving kind of the bar, or when I'm pushing, when I'm pulling. Am I feeling more in control? And I really buy into the high weight, low reps style of training. That really works for me.
Yeah, when you say low reps, so you mean 6 to 8 reps?
Even lower sometimes. I've done 5.
Yeah, nice. Are you going to say you don't like the high rep stuff?
Yeah, I don't want to do unnecessary volume, because for me it's it's a waste, because I could be putting that energy towards actually let's be pushing more weight, because for me that's where the muscle growth is. That's when I'm maximizing, activating those muscle fibers.
Nice. And when you look back and, similar to that training intensity, and for you, it just happened, the element of like progressive overload over 4 years. When it comes to like these habits that you've crystallized, at what point did you go from, I need to go and do my steps, I need to make sure I meal prep as a checklist every week, to just like, this is just now you, like it's now a new identity that you just embody? And that's not something you don't just switch it on and
No.
here I am. It's like, do
Yeah.
you recall, like, if you look back over the 4 years, at what point did it just feel like, this is really easy, I can go to an all-inclusive and come back the same way, I don't need to think about when I'm training, I don't need to think about when I'm meal prepping?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey. Like you said, it's not something that I can pinpoint and say it happened on this day. It's just, I guess, through the consistency and building the habits into my lifestyle, I was able to kind of stick with them. And it's not, for me, it's not just, I've got to eat this way. It's about how eating this way makes me feel. It's about how training in the morning first thing makes me feel, and then how it impacts the rest of my day. It's like I said, I'm craving those walks because for me, it's a real mental health thing, as opposed to, right, we've got to get 12,000 steps in. That's how I'm able to kind of make sure that I'm doing all those things. They don't feel like hard work anymore because the benefits are more than just ticking the box in terms of the numbers.
It's so interesting you say that, because it's a message that sounds, when you hear it, you think, surely there's got to be a moment where you just wake up and bang, you're there. But it really is just like, it's like a dimmer switch, right? It just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And one day it just the light's just on. But it just takes consistency to be able to make it so ingrained into your identity. Just moving around a bit. I know we're kind of jumping around, but I quite like the flow of it. With regards to your journey, I want to touch on like how you've used the physical transformation as a vehicle in other areas of your life, especially like just circle back to this confidence element. What have you done and you just think, I can't believe I've done that since this journey, and there's no other reason as opposed except for the fact that I've gone through this journey?
I mean, I'd probably say everything that I've done since RNT has been because of RNT, but highlights would be my first bodybuilding competition. I never would have done that. I mean, never in a million years would I ever even have dreamed of like even thinking about competing. But, I put myself I put myself out there. I did it. I signed up for it. It was, I think for me, I'm not a goal-driven person. I'm a process-driven person. So I was really looking forward to the journey, because I know the goal isn't at the end of the road. The goal is in the journey very much for me. And I was looking forward to learning more about myself, learning more about training, learning more about how my body responds to certain things, learning more about nutrition. So this time last year, I just finished Masters Bikini, my first competition. Yeah, I was super happy with the fact that I was able to get myself in competition physique and be able to stand up on stage and actually not feel like I don't belong here, I don't fit in here. That was the end goal for me.
What is Masters Bikini?
So it's so bikini is the physique, and so you're looking for a very, very lean, not so muscular, but just more leanness and some muscle. It's the Masters because of the age. So Masters is for over 40s.
Amazing. So like bikini look is more kind of beach body.
Yeah.
Look, when you said bodybuilding competition, I'm sure people are probably suddenly thinking, oh my gosh, she's got muscles coming out her ears and everything like that. Like,
no, not that jacked yet.
How does it compare to getting photoshoot lean? Because you got photoshoot lean in 2021, or was it end of 2020? End of 2020. So how does it compare in terms of how lean you got, or even just the process itself?
Some elements of it were quite similar in that, you're having to increase your activity, having to increase the cardio side of things whilst your calories are coming down. But it's another level in that that you are in competition with other people. So you want to be bringing your best physique. So you've got to be really dialed in terms of making sure that you're ticking all of those boxes. You can't be leaving anything to chance. And I feel like I was having to have more regular conversations with my coach around where are we now? Where are we going to be next week? What do we need to do to make this better? I feel like I was more involved in the coaching process, whereas I feel like first time round, I was given a plan and I just got on with it. Also, there's a posing side of things, isn't there? You're learning to pose, which I wasn't prepared for, if I'm being honest. I wasn't prepared for how hard it was going to be. Hands down, it was harder than anything that I was doing in the gym.
Yeah, posing is not for the faint-hearted. It looks quite funny if you never know anything about bodybuilding or physique prep. When you're actually doing it, you're shaking like a leaf and trying to hold it all together.
Hard. It's so hard to put your body in those positions and hold them in those positions. It's so unnatural.
Yeah. Okay. So competed in a physique show. What else?
In terms of accomplishments?
Yeah, like I've used the physical transfer because I'm assuming the physique competition is not possible if you haven't got the foundation or habits that you built in. You don't just go in on entry level and compete in a show.
There's no chance that you could do that without having done some kind of, having gone through some kind of coaching journey, transformation journey beforehand. I've also, in terms of my career, so, gone on leaps and bounds. I never thought that I'd be in management, but here I am. I never would have had the push to even put myself in a management role prior to RNT, because again, it came down to confidence and that relationship that I had with myself, that negative self-talk that I had. But going through that first transformation, for me, it was like, right, the sky's the limit here now. There's nothing that's going to be holding me back now. Everything that I want to be able to do, everything that I think I can do, I actually can do. So for the last 6 months, I've been in my first management role, which I'm really enjoying. There's challenges, of course, but I'd never thought that I would do this.
What was the self-talk before? What's the self-talk now?
So very negative around, Amisha, why didn't you do this? Or I felt like I was very, what's the word? Not extrovert, very introvert. I was super focused on me and what was going on inside me and losing focus around actually what's happening around me. So it was almost like there was a magnifying glass on me and like how I'm sitting and how I'm looking. And I feel like everyone's watching me and everyone's looking at me. And then through that, it would be like, well, Amisha, like, why didn't you say this? Why didn't you do this? Like, why are you doing this? Like, why aren't you doing this?
Yeah, just that obsession of yourself, really.
Yeah. Everything was just magnified. Like I said, I was really kind of introvert.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably less like introverted, because you can be introverted and still have good self-talk. I'd say it's probably more just overinflated sense of self, if what you're saying. Like you're just constantly analyzing yourself, constantly like talking about yourself, thinking everyone else is thinking about yourself.
Yes. Yeah. It was more so what I was thinking that other people would be seeing and perceiving and hearing from me. And that really kind of stopped me from wanting to do anything, because I was like, well, if I'm not talking, if I'm not moving, then there's not going to be no focus on me. So I'll just blend in and it'll be okay. I didn't want to stand out.
Yeah. And when did you feel like you're going to stand out?
By talking, by moving, by making myself known. Yeah.
Yeah. And how do you think that changed? What's the self-talk now, and in those same scenarios that you're in, whether it's in a work setting?
Very different, because I no longer feel like I'm holding myself back. I am putting myself out there. I am sharing ideas. I'm not so super focused on me and how I'm going to be coming across to people, because my self-worth is so much better. And I come back to that relationship that I have with myself now is more positive. Like obviously there are times where I'll be like, Amisha, like, well, that's a stupid thing to do. But it's very in the moment, and then we're moving on. It's not complete. It's not constantly beating myself up about that tiny, minute little thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in your new role, in your career, like when people say, well, when I say like you use a physical as a vehicle to improve your career, sometimes at the beginning you can think, well, how's that even possible? Like, how does that actually make sense? Like, what is it that you think has been the biggest driver for it? Is it simply just that confidence and being able to just put yourself out there, or do you think there's something else that's at play?
It's the confidence and also the self-worth, in that now I feel worthy of being able to put myself out there and become, a manager, and put myself, I feel worthy of love. I feel worthy of care. I feel worthy of being able to do the things that I've always wanted to do, but never felt like I was able to, or never felt like I was deserving of them.
Yeah. And that was because you didn't feel good in your own skin. Yeah. Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So, Amisha, you've had a couple of tough periods in your life in the last couple of years, and one thing we're discussing often is the passing of your mum. Was it last year?
2022.
22 years ago, and you were talking about the grief process and how this journey has also helped with grief process, and I thought that was quite interesting. Because something we talk about a lot is management of emotions and, emotional eating, emotional crutches, vices. Like, this is where weight management becomes difficult. Talk us through your experience of dealing with grief and how potentially it's changed, or what that experience was for you.
Yeah, I mean, hands down, it's like the hardest thing that I've ever gone through in my whole entire life. And we weren't entirely prepared for it. Mum had health issues. We knew that she wasn't in a great place, but you're never prepared to kind of lose, the most important person in your life. And at the time, she was the most important person in my life. And I mean, it goes without saying that it was a really dark period for a week. There was nothing. I was kind of thought I was winning if I was just able to put one foot in front of the other. Physiologically, I mean, people always talk about the emotional side of grief, but physiologically, the impact that it had on me, fatigue. I was so incredibly tired. Even going out for a walk, like I couldn't. My body just felt really heavy. Brain fog. I couldn't have conversations because I couldn't think of the simplest words to have these conversations. My cortisol levels were really, really high. Found myself kind of getting stressed, annoyed over the silliest little things. And I lost my periods as well. So that for me was a sign that my body was in trauma. And I've only ever lost my periods when I've been in the grind, as you know, when you're kind of going super low in terms of nutrition and super high in terms of the activity. And only way that your body can survive is by shutting down the systems that aren't crucial. There was about a week. It was about a week after losing mum that because I didn't go to the gym or anything like that. Everything stopped. I was barely managing to eat, let alone stay on plan. It's about a week after, and I just thought, I can't continue in this place of unproductivity. And I feel like naturally, I'm the kind of person who aligns with getting myself back to a state of homeostasis or functioning. Whatever's going on in my life, I think I'll always strive to get to a point where I can function. So it's a week after, and I just thought, I just can't continue on with this. And also I knew that, like, if my mum was kind of looking back, it would hurt her so much to see us in pain. And also I think losing my mum highlighted for me that I'm her legacy. I'm the gift that she's left to the world. How can I be in my bedroom crying, like wasting away? I want to do something with that. I want to make an impression on the world, not just for me, but also for my mum. I want to make an impact. So all of those things kind of helped me very slowly. I mean, it took time for me to get my head fully back into the gym, get my head fully back into, eating on plan, eating the things that I knew that I needed to be eating for the training. I'm actually super grateful for the fact that I had some kind of a plan, because otherwise I don't know how I would have got through that stage in my life. I had two options. The options were, and I had very good reasons to kind of move towards really unhealthy coping mechanisms like food, binge eating, alcohol. But I didn't, because, like I said, naturally I'm more aligned towards functioning and productivity rather than dysfunctioning and being unproductive.
When it comes to like coping mechanisms or how you processed it, how do you feel like the journey helped? I don't know if accelerates the right word, or contribute to the process.
So
because it's very easy to sort of, like you said, just shut it all down and say, look, I'm going to focus on this 6 months time, 12 months time, whenever I feel better. But in the moment, it's probably one of the best things you can do is double down on your health when you're going through a difficult period of time, because otherwise you can spiral yourself completely out of control. And if your mental health is already in a precarious position, when you add in bad coping mechanisms, it might even send it even worse.
Yeah. And I think for me is I was very lucky in that not long before losing my mum, I'd gone through that transformation. So the plan, the way of eating, the way of training was still kind of very, very new to me, very fresh to me, and something that I really enjoy doing. So I was really grateful, like I said, to have those things that kept me going. So it wasn't about, do I feel like eating today or do I not feel like eating? It was like, right, this is on my plan. This is what I've got to get down. Let's get on. Let's do it, because tomorrow we're going to be in the gym. We're going to need that fuel. We're going to need that energy to then be able to train. I'm not saying that it was an overnight thing. It took a couple of weeks for me then to fully get back into a good training place, a good eating place. I also feel like had I have lost my mum prior to my first transformation, I would have been in a very, very different place. And I feel like that experience would have been very different for me. I don't think that I would have been so quick to go back into the place of productivity and functioning. And I could well have gone down the binge eating, the alcohol route. So I'm eternally grateful for that.
Amazing. And what about it do you think has allowed you to stay in that productive mindset? Was it just knowing how good you feel, or was it a different way of dealing with stress or emotions that you've now cultivated?
I think it was having another focus. So not thinking about the loss, not thinking about the fact that she's not here anymore. I think for a good year after losing mum, I was trying to keep my head in a positive space. So trying not to spend too much time thinking about the fact that she's gone and I miss her and I wish she was here, because that isn't helpful. None of that is going to change. There's nothing is going to bring her back. So therefore, it was always about, having something else that was going to stop me from going into those really dark, negative places. And not long after losing my mum, I think it was about 6 months, is when I signed up to the competition. So again, that I feel like that massively helped me, because then all the thinking became about the competition. Everything was about the competition. Had I have not lost my mum, I don't even know whether I would have done the competition. I may well have done it, but maybe not as soon as I had done it. I feel like that's my savior.
Yeah. Okay. If you're speaking to people, we'll do two different conversations. One would be very early on in the journey, like cleaning the palate, sort of early process phase. Another would be post first checkpoint. What's the best piece of advice you'd give to each of them? So just to paint the picture, someone who's new to the journey it's got so many different things they've changed in their life, almost done a lifestyle overhaul, wondering how this is ever going to be sustainable. What's the best advice would you give to that person there?
I would say put your trust in the process. Do the things that might not feel natural to you. Do the things that you might not want to do. And also just suck it up. There are going to be parts of it that you're not going to fully enjoy. There are going to be parts of it that you're not going to be on board with. But actually, you've signed up for this. This is what you want. It's not going to be forever. That's the other thing I would say. The limiting your alcohol or staying on plan in terms of your nutrition is only for a short period of time. Once you've come past that checkpoint, you will get full flexibility back in your life. So just remember, it's just for a short period, and also trust your coach, trust the process.
Amazing. And then speaking to someone who has done their photo shoot, they've hit checkpoint, they're now wondering like, what's next? Like, how do I now turn what I've just done in the grind into something sustainable? What's the best piece of advice you give to someone then when the goal is like maintenance or just living that lifestyle?
I would say don't jack everything in and just go back to the way that you were doing things prior to the journey, because if you're going to do that, you're going to go back to looking exactly how you were prior to the journey. So be consistent, be consistent with your training, be consistent with your steps, be consistent with your meals, but also know that you've got the flexibility to not have to adhere 100% to training all the time, not having to adhere 100% to nutrition all the time. And I don't know, I would say stay with a coach and have those conversations around the flexibility, the things that you can now do because you've passed the checkpoint, you've passed the transformation, and make it a lifestyle.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess the next question is, what's next for you?
Yeah, I'm going to continue to train in the gym. Muscle building is still my goal. My goal is to be as strong as I possibly can. So that is going to be my focus. I've thought about whether I want to do another competition. I was very close to signing up, but actually I've taken my foot off the gas there a little bit. I want to continue to kind of just enjoy my training, build the muscle, and then see where I'm at in a year's time.
I love it. Love it. Long-term muscle building is always very fruitful on the other side.
It's a slow game, really slow. But I mean, you've got to know that in every rep, in every workout, you are going towards that goal of building the muscle. You can't expect to do it in 6 months or a year. And enjoy the process, I think, more than anything. Don't focus on the end result. I think just enjoy day in, day out what you're doing.
So you're gonna get that 4-plate hip thrust then.
Wow. Yeah. Let's hope.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show again, Amisha. It's been great to see your progress. Great to see that you continue to use the physical as a vehicle, but also just building that lifestyle solution to just stay in shape. In what sounds like very effortlessly and almost now intuitively. And it just goes to show that this journey can't be rushed. Like you want to get to the checkpoint as fast as possible, but the period after that really is a rewiring of your behavior, mindset, and identity, and you're living proof of that. So thanks for sharing and for believing in the mission.
Thank you so much for having me, Akash.